Hey Copic fans, welcome back to Copic in the Craft Room. Today I'm going to tackle a hard one. We're going to look at a little bit on how to do no line coloring. It's a more advanced skill, but I can give you the basics of how it's done, and it's something that's worth practicing. It's a skill builder and a coloring practice skill that will make you better all around. So find a favorite image, and I'm going to show you how to print it out or how to ink it up so that you know how to get started. And then we will attempt some no line coloring. So I've shifted over onto a work area that is fairly well lit so you guys can see a little bit better what I'm doing. I am attempting some no line coloring, and the concept is that you make the stamp lines disappear altogether, and so all that you're left with is the colored image. There are a couple artists out there that are phenomenal at this, and so Alice Wirtz, I think that's how you pronounce her last name, is phenomenal. And I will, she was a featured artist in Copic in the Craft Room, but I will, if I remember, try to create a link again to her blog, because I think she's one of the best, at least that I've seen very recently. I know there's a ton of people out there that are very good at this. This is really one of my first attempts, and so I'm taking some hints from them as to the things that they use, and I'm starting extremely simply, and this is done purposefully so that I can hopefully have some success and want to try it again. That's always a great tip. If you're not sure of something, try to start easily. So instead of starting with a figure that's a little more complicated, I'm starting with a flower. Very, very simple one. This is from a Close to My Heart stamp set. It's called From Me to You. It's just the flower portion of that set. I'm stamping on express blending card, and then I am using dye ink fine linen. This one, from Paper Tray Ink. It was recommended theirs was recommended to me, so I've got that one. And I'm going to start with a series of yellows on the petals, and then actually a big long series. You would not need to do this extensive, but I'm going to have some fun with this image today, even though I'm keeping it really simple. I've got kind of a tester one if I need it, kind of standing by, and the one I'll actually color up. There's a very good chance also on that center that I might work from dark to light. And I might actually test some of that out on my tester image before I get there. So I'm going to start, and I'll probably work kind of in halves or even thirds on these petals because there's a lot of them. And I'll get us close, and then I will speed us up and talk you through the steps that I'm taking. So we're starting right in with a Y32. And you're going to notice, hopefully pretty quick, that I'm actually going all the way out and over those stamp lines. This stamp has pretty wide lines, so I'm actually coloring over the lines. I'm going to switch over to one of my mid-tones, which is a Y35. Definitely can see where that's coming in. I'm feathering or flicking that from the center of the flower out onto the petals. YR15 is next. Again, same motion from the center of the flower out and a little bit less. YR24 is the next one, and this one flicks from the center, but it's also going to come out around the outer edges of the petal, and it's going to fade in just a little bit. So I'm flicking downward on the edge of the petal as well. So it's coming up from the center and over those edges. YR27 is actually going to be my darkest color I use on the petals. I do tiny bits out on the tip of each petal, and then I do just a little bit coming in from the centers on all of them. But again, much less. Some of those backline petals are going to get a little more. Going back in reverse now, I'm going to try to smooth some of those transitions out. YR24, hitting those edges. YR15. Down to Y35. The petals actually were pretty smooth, so I'm skipping through this part pretty fast. And then the Y32, this is where I'm going to try to really see if I can soften that outer edge where it comes down onto the petal, but it's not quite enough. So I actually switch back to my Y35 and try to soften that a little bit more. So right against where that
YR24 happens, that darkening. And it really did. It actually softened up that line a lot. So now I'm going to just hyperdrive, sped this way up, and I'm going to do all of the other petals in the exact same way. I'm layering the Y32, Y35, YR15, YR24. Takes a little longer because I'm getting all those edges again. And YR27. And then I'm going to go in reverse here in a second and try to smooth these out. So now I'm going to work on the center, and I wasn't totally sure how I was going to do the center, so I've pulled my tester over and I'm trying a few colors. I tried to go from dark to light, but it really got too dark too fast because I do want this to have some darkness to it. So now I'm trying to go from light to dark and kind of get this effect of maybe some individual seeds kind of in that center part of the flower or little pod. And I'm liking the way this looks. I've got kind of a series of 4 earth tones that I'm using. But again, it's just an experiment, and I've got one that I like, so I'm going to start with E07. And I'm going in on all the places where there's a white dot on my stamped image and putting that E07. Now E09 is going to ring around each of those dots. E27 is next, and that again is going to make a full ring around each of those dots. E29 is last, and this time I'm not going to go all the way around. I'm going to kind of do maybe 3/4 of each one, and I'm going to kind of keep it to one side of the flower. I'm going to go back in, and I am going to fill in some of those little holes with my E29 little dots that were left behind, and then I'm going to start blending it back. The E09 is what I'm using right there to kind of soften that edge, and the E07. And then I decided I really want to lighten it up even more. I brought in my colorless blender. I'm having to brush off a little bit of color as I go, so it's really picking up some of that E07, that kind of darker rust red color. And then lastly, I'm going to come back in with my YR24 and really push some of those back petals back. I've lost some of that where the lines, because of the no line coloring, I've lost the ones, the variation between the petals at the bases. And then this is YR27. But you can kind of see what's happening even in this fast pace. It's pushing those petals further back, so even though I can't see the outline anymore, it's still showing me the depth of that flower and showing me those different levels. Y35, just to help blend that back in a little bit.
So I have an image that basically I can't see the lines any longer. I can't see the stamped lines. Colored pretty simply, lots of colors, but I used very user-friendly colors and that they blend really well together. Even when I went back and did that second round on the petals, because I felt like I'd lost some of that layering without seeing the lines, and I still didn't want to see the lines, but I wanted to see the individual petals. It was very easy to go back and add more color, so I gave myself a lot of kind of cheats, not really cheats, but made this easier from the get-go. I used a really simple stamp. I used colors that are very user-friendly, and what I mean by that when I say that ever is that they mix or blend really, really well together. They do it on their own. I don't have to put a lot of effort in, and even as they're dry, I can come back and do some more playing. So I did pick colors that I knew were gonna play nicely together. But this gives you at least a heads up or a start of what that might look like and the possibilities of no lines stamped, colored image and what that might finish up like. I'm going to do a photo tutorial for this as well sometime in the next month, and it probably will be on something a little more complicated. So you can look for that if you're a person who likes to see that step out a little more visually. Otherwise, I hope you have a very colorful week, and I hope you get your Copics out and play with them a little bit. Thanks for joining me today.